Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. Today, I'm pretty excited because we're going to be building a planet from scratch inside of Cinema4d and Octane Render. And this is exciting to me because this is why I originally got into CG, is I was working on a project and I wanted to build a planet. And going into it at the time, I didn't realize the amount of technical and artistic knowledge it really takes to create a realistic, beautiful image inside of a CG program. In this video, we'll cover everything, all the way from big concepts like lighting and texturing to small concepts like render settings and optimizations. Hope you guys are excited because I am. Let's jump in. Okay, now that we have Cinema4d opened up, don't worry if your Cinema4d looks different than mine. This is just a custom layout for tutorials. It's really nothing special. I just do this so that way y'all can see everything on one screen. Usually I'm doing two screens though. So let's just get started right off with lighting. We're gonna add an HDRI environment, and then we're gonna add an Octane targeted light, and then we're gonna also add 3 primitive spheres. So we'll do spheres. Change your segments to something like 300. That should be good enough. And then go ahead and copy that. 1 clouds, and then 1 atmosphere. And believe it or not, that's all the geometry you need for a planet, just 3 spheres stacked on top of each other. We'll go ahead and let Octane render off, and then we'll move our area light somewhere where we can see it. That looks pretty good. I am in path tracing, and I do currently have ACEs enabled. So if you don't have ACEs enabled, you might see this like ugly clip right here. I'm just in it because I prefer the ACEs workflow. That's just how I do it. You can do it however you want though. That looks pretty good right there. The great thing about Octane targeted area light is that we can move it and it's always going to orient itself towards our planet, which is nice. Now let's go ahead and create 2 materials. And I'm just going to do 2 glossy materials, and we'll name one surface, and we'll name the other one clouds. We'll drop our surface onto our surface and our clouds onto our clouds. And for our atmosphere, what we're going to do is add in a Octane fog volume. There we go. Something you're going to want to make sure that your fog volume has, or that you're doing with your fog volume, is you want to make sure that it's actually filling up this full sphere. So we're going to go ahead and take it out, the full volume of the sphere. And that's because we're going to kind of define this volume by this atmosphere. So if we take this atmosphere, drag it under our volume, you can see it's now filling up the full volume. We're going to go to medium, just click fog, click our voxels. We'll do something like 2. For final render quality, you're probably going to want to be somewhere more around like, I'd say 1 or even lower if you want to go lower. And then what we'll need to do also, which we haven't done yet, is bump up the radius on these each layer. So surface is 100, our clouds can be like 103, and our atmosphere could be like 107. You can always change these later on down the line. That's kind of the nice thing. And it's looking pretty good already. It looks like our volume might be offset a little bit, which I'm not surprised. That usually does happen. So I think if we go up 1 on the z-axis, and if I'm not mistaken, we also need to go up 1 on the x-axis, but we'll see. Yeah, definitely. And it also looks like we need to go up 1 on the y-axis. Perfect. Now our volume should be centered. I don't know why Octane does that. It's just like a little bug that it has. But that looks looking nice right there. Let's go ahead and disable our volume layer and our cloud layer, so that way we're just working with our surface layer. Now our surface layer is going to be pretty simple. It's going to consist of a displacement, a roughness, and a diffuse. First thing we're going to do is our displacement. This might be an untraditional way of displacing for you, just depending on how you usually do your displacement workflow. We're going to add in a displacement node. We're going to make sure we're in 8K displacement. And we could probably get away with 4K, and I might try that at first, just so the tutorial is not choppy. And I think we'll do like a height of 6 or 7 for now, and a mid-level of 0.5. However, if you want maximum quality, you're more than welcome to go after 8K. Then we'll drag this again, and we're actually going to do a baking texture node, and that seems a little surprising, but I'll get into why we're doing that right after I add in this noise. So we'll drag in a Cinema4d noise, and we're using Cinema4d because Cinema4d noises have more options. So we're going to take our Cinema4d noise, and there are different ways you could do this. You could do a displacement and do a vertex displacement and add a bunch of segments to your surface to get the displacement you want. Octane just does such a great job with displacements that I prefer just going through Octane. So we'll take our noise, we'll drag it into texture. Then we're not done though. We got to go to our baking texture. And we want to go to whatever our displacement is. So in this case, it's 4096. We'll do 4096. And then we'll change the type from LDR to HDR, linear space. There we go. And now we have our noise displacement, but we aren't even close to the type of noise we want. So we're going to go down and select noise. I think that I'm feeling Luca for this one. I kind of like what we're getting here. We can play around with our global scale, maybe take it up to something like 200, see what that looks like. That looks pretty nice. However, I'm going to go ahead and jump up to 8K because this is already kind of becoming a problem. So we'll do 8192 by 8192. Now, because we changed our displacement right here, that doesn't really matter until we change our baking. So we'll do 8192. Awesome, we got our bake, and it looks like we're going to be going with a different noise. Keep searching. And I'm going to bump up our octaves because I feel like we're not getting enough detail out of this. All these noises are a little, they're kind of just lines, and that's usually because our octaves aren't high enough. There we go. So see, that gave us a lot more detail. Let's go back to Luca because I usually do use this one. There we go. And believe it or not, that kind of gave us the look we're going for. So from here, we can do a few things. We got a nice displacement for now. I'll probably go back and we can adjust some of our parameters, but I think it'd be better if we move forward for now, just so we can kind of get a full feeling of everything together visually and then make small adjustments. So definitely the first thing you're going to do is take your diffuse down, and just depending on how you want to do this, if you want to do this fully procedurally, you definitely can. What I like to do though is, if I were going to do this procedurally, I'd probably drag in like a mixed texture, and then I would drag in a noise for each one of these and mix different colors in to try to create a planet surface. However, we actually handmade planet surfaces, so I'm just going to drag in one of those and see what I like. So guys, feel free to go online and find some textures, or maybe if you want to do it procedurally with noise, you can, but I'm going to be dragging our own, so I'm going to go to our Exoplanet pack. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Origin just because I want to get some of those greens with those grays, or with the browns. I think that will kind of give it like a earthy, rocky type feel, and I think that's going to fit our surface really well. So we'll take our color map, which you can see right here, and we'll drag it in. And we don't need to take our normal map, and that's, we can see what it looks like, but we're kind of already displacing with a weird displacement, so they might kind of just override each other. And then we'll take our roughness as well. Also, if you want to, you could just take your roughness here, and I'll show you real quick. We're trying to do this like pretty procedurally, but might as well just show you what the roughness would look like displaced. Yeah, you could just take your roughness map and displace it, and that looks pretty nice. And it actually is nice because it does coincide with our diffuse map. And if I were doing this type of displacement map, I would definitely clamp down how much we're displacing. This is way too much, but we're kind of, since we're using noise, we're going to go for more of an abstract look, so we'll do something like that. And there we go. And then we'll take our roughness and put it in also, and that's giving us a much better look. We're getting a lot more detail out of the surface. We'll back out just a little bit and then take our light and pull it around some. Great, so now we have this super abstract typology type looking surface, and we have a lot of color variation. You can achieve this color variation with mixed nodes and with noises, but it's going to be not impossible, but definitely difficult to do. And then also you could do the same thing with roughnesses as well. You could just mix in your own, you could have your own node set up of noise mixtures and getting a roughness that you like. And that's pretty much our surface concluded. We might jump back to the displacement, but for now, we'll move on to our clouds. So we'll go to our clouds. We did a glossy material, but it's going to be diffuse. I just have the glossy button on hand. And we'll take our diffuse. So we're going to mostly be focused on our opacity right here. And again, guys, we can go the mixed texture route, and I'll show you. So we'll take 2 Cinema4d noises. And you can already see like we're getting like this cloud look on top of it, which is pretty cool. But we can take this further with a more detailed noise. Maybe gaseous. That might be fitting. It's pretty interesting. We'll take our global scale down to like 20%. And then we'll do that on both. Maybe on the other one we'll offset a little bit. So let's go 30. And then we'll just change a relative scale just a little bit. And then we'll add another noise, and we'll use this noise to define how much we're mixing by. So there we go. Then we'll change this noise to something like Luca. We'll go with Luca again. And we'll add a gradient to it. And you can start clamping it down. And you see we're getting a cloud layer now. And we have the beginnings of a cloud layer. And another thing I would do is route this into bump or displacement, or potentially both, just depending on how much detail you want out of these clouds. But again, since we're using this surface already, we can go ahead and take some clouds that overlay perfectly on top of it. So we'll just take those clouds right there, and we'll drop them in to our opacity. So now we have this cloud layer, and it's a little bit hard to see, which is fine. We still need to do a few things to it. We're going to actually take the same image and we'll plug it into our displacement, and then we'll add a gradient also. We'll take our displacement to, let's do 4K for now, and take our height down to something like 3. Take our mid-level to 0.5, and then we're going to clamp our white value down by quite a bit, and we're starting to get a lot of detail out of these clouds. Let me turn a little bit so you can see it maybe a little bit better. And we'll switch to direct lighting just for now so we can get a little bit faster of a preview. Then we can also take the noise we created earlier and map it into our bump if we want. That's looking pretty good. I think our cloud layer is a little bit too, the radius is a little bit too high, so we'll do a radius of 102. And we'll see how that looks. Okay, 101 looks a little bit better. And it looks like we clamped our clouds a little too much. So we'll take it back a little bit. And we'll maybe add some lighter values into these darker regions just to get a little bit of a haze effect over it. And now let's turn on our volume. And we have the beginnings of an atmosphere over this planet. Something that we'll definitely need to do is go to this medium, go to our scattering under the volume medium. So we'll go to absorption and scattering, and we'll change that fully to white. Actually, you probably don't want to do full white, but we could go like 95%. That's pretty good. Scatter, 95% as well. And now that we have that looking how we want it to, let's go to our volume again, and let's go to our medium, and then we're going to take our volume step length down to something like 0.5 for now. And that's essentially adding more detail into your volume, which that might be a little too high still, so do 0.25. And because we took our volume step length down so much, it's going to define the voxels more. So let's go ahead and take our density up to 200, go back to our voxel size and take that down to 1. If you're already at 1, that's fine. You can stay there. Maybe if you want to go lower, you can. And after a little bit of tweaking, we've landed on something like this. We're not quite finished yet, though, because really what planet would be scattering like white as a color? That's kind of like an odd color to scatter in the spectrum. So we'll go back to our medium. We'll go to our absorption and scattering. And we're going to change these to a lighter blue, probably is a good place to start. So we'll absorb blue, which means we're absorbing the blue light out of the spectrum, and then we can scatter. We can maybe scatter like a red color, try to get like kind of a halo effect around a planet. We'll see if that looks any good. There we go. It's looking interesting. Might be a little too much, and we might want to go for more of an ozone color, so we could go here. And this is really going to be a back and forth, just depending on what color is your planet, what kind of feeling are you going for with this planet. Very blue colors are a lot of life, and like more grayer colors are less. So that you could even go for like an orangey color and go for like a desert planet if you wanted. And that looks pretty interesting, but I think we're gonna keep it pretty basic. And we're scatter just lighter colors in. I don't want to push too much color into our atmosphere. And we'll go back to our volume. Let's go to our main. We'll feather that edge out. And then we'll just make this light invisible. For now, we don't need to see it. Even if it is close to the planet, it's really not a big deal. Go to our light settings. Let's bring it up a little bit in temperature. We'll cool it off some. Kind of give it a deep space kind of feel. Maybe take the power down. We're getting a pretty interesting look. We're gonna keep taking that density up a little bit, just until you feel like it's gotten there. We really want to scatter and put a lot of haze here. If we don't have that, it just really doesn't look like the atmosphere is thick, and it wouldn't make sense for the atmosphere to be this big and not thick. So we definitely want to make sure it's looking like it's dense enough. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and add in a Octane camera. We'll snap to camera view. And I think under our camera settings, we'll do something like a portrait or telephoto lens. We'll just see how that looks. And I think we'll just go around 100. You could get some really detailed shots if you wanted. Now that we have our camera in the range that we want it to be, we can go ahead and go to our Octane camera settings, and we're gonna go to post-processing. And in one of my opinions, this is like Octane's one of their most powerful, one of the most powerful things inside of Octane is its post-processing. I feel like out of all the render engines, Octane is ahead on post-processing. You can really get some nice post-processing effects on your render, and that's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be kind of taking advantage of Octane's post-processing to help emphasize how bright the sun would be on this planet, and also the type of glow a planet has. Usually if you see pictures of planets, you can look at like NASA's references photos, that there's usually a glow around them, and that's kind of what we're going to try to replicate here. You can see we're already getting some nice effects right there. And then we'll take our spectral shift and we'll shift it up a little bit. We'll blur our glare some as well. And we'll take our glare power up. And that's starting to look really nice. And this is a great planet. Like, we could call it quits right here. It looks beautiful. One thing that I want to do though is I kind of want to add like this lava effect, since we're already doing this really abstract, like super displaced planet. Like I said, if you were to look at reference photos, planets would never be this displaced, but we're just going for it right now. So I'm going to turn off our clouds, those layers. I'm going to go to our surface layer right here. Node editor. There's a few ways we can try to tackle this. So what I want to do is kind of like add a lava effect. So I think if I go down, let's go to, we're gonna have to change this from a glossy. We could go universal if we wanted, if we want to keep the glossiness. And we'll just take our metallic, make sure your metallic's all the way down, and then go to emission, and we'll do a texture emission. And I'm gonna take our roughness that I dragged in earlier, and perhaps we could use this since it's very highly detailed. Whoops, wrong type of gradient. We're going to drop in an Octane gradient. We could use this roughness to potentially map our lava. Yeah, and I'll just invert it like that. Keep dragging it through. And that's looking pretty good right there. And we could try to switch from a texture emission. We could do black body, and then here we can drag the texture. That might look a little bit better. And then let's take our temperature down. Yeah, and I like that a lot more. That is definitely more lava planet vibe that we're going for. Let's go back to our gradient. And that looks pretty nice. Let's go ahead and add our cloud and volume back. You could, if you don't have the roughness map or you don't want to map it with the roughness, you could very, very easily just map it with some noise. And just maybe mix noises together. I really like how this is overlaying though, and it's giving us a really intense look. It might be a little too much, actually. So let's go ahead and go to our power over here, and I think we'll drop our power down to something like, let's do 25 and see how that looks. Let's see, we kind of want to keep a balance between like illuminating our atmosphere here and also like keeping that glow, because see, that probably not cutting it right there. And what I did is I just decided to add a color correction, increase the contrast a little bit, and then brought it back down with our gradient. And there we go. We have this really pretty planet. We're not quite finished yet though, because no planet is complete without stars. But I just wanted to get to this point and show y'all kind of where we're at. Also, like I said, you can always use noise to do these kinds of effects. This would be a little difficult to achieve with noise, but I would go about it by mixing different types of noises and subtracting and adding different types of noises as well. You're really looking for a lot of variation, or you could even potentially use roughness maps, like what I did with this planet, to do it. And you don't necessarily have to use a planet roughness map. You could probably do like a not fingerprint, but like a grunge roughness map, and then just make sure it doesn't tile. So then I would mix it with some noise as well, just to keep it from tiling. But this is looking really nice, and we're gonna add in some stars now. So we'll just drop in a plane. We're actually gonna set a target to it, and we want our target object to be this sphere. And now that we have that targeted, let's change the orientation. We'll make it a little bit wider and a little bit taller just to fill up our camera view. Looks good right there. Now we'll create extension Cinema4d Octane material, or you can just drag in your material button if you got it right there. We'll add that material to the plane and we'll call it stars. Now that we have our stars created, we'll go to our node editor, and I'm going to drag in a star map from the planet pack. We'll go to our bonus material, and we have a choice between two square star maps, and I think I'm going to do this one because I want to see that galaxy in the background. We'll go ahead and take our emission node, bring it out. Let's do a black body emission. We'll take the texture, put it there. Then we'll take our basic right here. We'll turn off our diffuse, roughness bump, normal, displacement, opacity, transmission. Keep the emission, take off the medium. We'll turn off those. That's fine for now. Let's go ahead and re-render. Awesome, you can see the stars in the background. I went and turned off our volume layer just because it's slowing the scene down a lot, and I want this to kind of go by smoothly. So we'll take our brightness of them. Maybe we can turn them up to something like 200. Now, you don't want your stars to be too obvious, especially if you're looking at references. Too bright of stars will kind of just make it look fake. Like if we were to do something like 2000. It just doesn't look right. That's kind of not what we're going for, so we'll take it back down. 200 was probably a sweet spot for where we want to be with this scene. Now let's back it up a little bit, and we can kind of optimize our scene for if we're going to export PNG sequence or EXR sequence. So let's go ahead and do like 1000 samples of path tracing. I have a whole video on sampling. If it's not out yet, it'll be coming out soon. So maybe if you don't know what these do, you could check out that video, but I'll kind of explain what I'm doing. Right now I'm clamping our global illumination. That's really not necessary. We'll do 1000 max samples. These diffuse depths are fine. That's really not a huge deal. Let's see. We're gonna run out of VRAM if I crank up these parallel samples, so I'm not gonna do that. But I definitely want to do adaptive sampling. And I don't want to group pixels. I don't like to group pixels because when we do adaptive sampling and we group pixels on planets with volumes in like clouds like this, usually it tries to group in the parts of the atmosphere that aren't finished rendering, and then you'll get like this jagged atmosphere that's like changing every frame. And it just tends to cause a lot of issues, so I usually don't group pixels like that. And it looks like we're not even reaching our noise threshold, so I'll take it down. So these settings look pretty good. We'll go over to our camera imager, we'll enable it, and we're gonna go down over to our AI denoiser, we'll enable it. We can denoise volumes for this one since we're gonna do 1,000 samples of path tracing. And now we'll have, if we have any noise kind of pop up on our planet or whatever, it should be getting denoised and it should be looking pretty clean. We'll turn on an atmosphere. Next, let's go over to our render settings. And guys, now it's just a matter of choosing your file format and where you want to save it. We're pretty much done. I'll just do a PNG for this one, and we'll do 16 bits per channel and click render. I hope you gained a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of insight into my workflow, and that you can take that and apply it in your future projects. If you're wanting to grow and learn as a creative artist, you can check out our assets and tutorials in the link in the description, including the textures we used in today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out.